Okay, here we are. Welcome to this conversation with the lovely Martina of Yoga Time. Yay! Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Martina is one of the teachers at Little Yoga Space, and she offers quite a lot of fun for the younger generation. But the adults watching here, check out all of the events that she runs, community yoga nidra and Reiki, and a whole bunch of workshops. And there'll be some tapping classes coming soon. So for those of you who haven't met Martina, she is the founder and creator of Yoga Time Yay. And I will post her website along with this video so you can check out what she does. She is a certified family yoga teacher, kids yoga teacher. She does yoga nidra and EFT, which most people probably know as tapping. And she also has a second degree Reiki practitioner qualification, and is also an astrologer. She always has the answers for when something just feels a little bit odd with the universe, which I always very much appreciate. For those of you who have not met me, my name is Katrin. I'm the director at the Yoga Space, and I'll be hosting this conversation here today. And I might ask Martina a few questions and guide any questions that are coming in for her as well. So the title of our conversation today was actually not so much focused at the kind of kids yoga, family yoga for the kids and what that is going to do for the kids, but actually how that supports the parent, the kind of modern day parent. So why don't we start actually speaking about what it even means? Like what does it mean to be a modern day parent in today's crazy world? What does that look like, and what are the kind of pressures that modern day parents have to deal with? And in your experience, in terms of what you hear from the parents that you work with, or obviously whose kids you work with.
I think, as you said, introducing the title of our workshop, I really wanted the focus to be on the parents, because I think as well equipped as they are leading adult lives, they face many challenges. And I think kids yoga is one modality that can support the parent as well as their child. It actually supports them by what it offers to their child. And some of the pressures that they face are very obvious to start with, and some are much more subtle. But before I go into that, I would like to just put out there that I'm not a parent yet. One day I would hope to be, but by no means do I understand or try to speak from the position of a parent. I'm speaking from the position of somebody who has had the opportunity to interact, observe, and support many parents over the last few years as my role of a tutor, a nanny, a friend, an auntie. That role keeps growing and growing, and a teacher as well. So I've seen firsthand the kind of challenges parents face within the intimacy of their own homes, as well as outside. And I think it's actually two issues that they really struggle with, and those are time and support. I think they feel pressure from work. I think they feel pressure from their peers, other parents and other non-parents, their friends, their wider community, and they feel pressure from family in terms of expectations, how they should or should not parent, how they should or should not interact amongst themselves. And I think they experience a lot of pressure from their other halves, their partners, their spouses, society, even the environment. So the pressures are many fold, and meeting certain standards and expectations, as said, can be really challenging. I feel that parents do not feel themselves seen or heard by their own kids and by the aforementioned members of their communities as well. I don't think they feel entirely supported through the challenges that their own children experience.
Yeah, so I guess there is that you're speaking to quite a lot of systemic issues here, and the lack of support as well. So is that in the sense of there isn't a lot of easily available information out there, or how does this kind of reflect? Is there, you know, the schools, I'm assuming, are under so much pressure. There can be financial lack of support, I guess. But I guess maybe also kind of like a form of counseling, or even recognizing that mentally this is challenging, and maybe that's just not really fully recognized in the public health system. I guess this is kind of really so far spread into so many different areas.
Yes, it is. I agree. There is a system that is available to support parents, whether some use it or don't use it, whether some find it relevant. I think that's a whole other question. And with the roles that I kind of mentioned earlier before I got to society, was more about, I guess, the wellness of or the quality of their relationships with their peers, with their family members, with their children as well, and having the time to invest in their own wellbeing practices or exercises on a regular basis. I often hear that parents lack time, and even if the same time is available to all of us, we all handle it in various of ways. Sometimes it's that lack of capacity to be able to know that your children are looked after while you are looking after yourself. Sometimes it's impossible to do both at the same time. And although I do feel that resources are available, I'm not sure how well they are, how accessible they are. They are available, but is their availability relevant to the lives of modern day parents? And whether it's a resource issue, whether it's looking for a wider support network. Culturally, I come from a network of the wider family being available to you, even in this modern day and age. There are many factors in this, because nowadays parents are in a smaller hubs of communities and people, and whether it's even the pressure to be able to reach out and say, I need help or I need support. I think that's another challenge they face. I think it's on the surface, they would like to appear as having it all figured out, leading organized and tidy lives, which is not sometimes possible. And those who do make it possible, then that is wonderful to also recognize. So I think it is a conversation that can go in many directions, because yes, support is available. Maybe some parents don't choose to utilize that support, and those that do they find that it is supporting them in the way it is required. I'm not sure if the support that is available to them comes from parents themselves, and also the type of parent they want to be, because that is a variety as wide as you know, it's a very, very personal choice. And even as an outsider, whether a practitioner, a teacher, a supporter, you want to work with that parent. You want to bring in your skills and your experience, but essentially you want to support the parent the way they need to be supported. And my choice of doing that, as I have had various roles where I've tried to do that, and my ultimate choice was kids yoga.
Yeah, there's a whole other, as you were just talking, I was like, wow, there's a whole other complexity around asking for help and that support, or even recognizing that you might need some support, getting to that place. And, you know, whether that's with raising your child or with any aspect in life, right? But then actually stepping up and asking for it and accepting help and learning to receive help in a society where the expectation is that we're all strong and independent and can kind of, you know, are the best at everything anyway. And then obviously that does need to be met, and you need to be heard by people around you, and help needs to be offered without any expectations to get anything in return. And, you know, and it just so reminds me of the saying, it takes a village to raise a child. And I think that is just such an important, it takes not only a village to raise a child, but actually for that child to be born, for that child to learn anything, for that child to grow into an adult and have children, for that person to die at some, you know, at some point. We have the human race evolved in the context of a village, and considering where the world is going right now and this lifestyle that we've created, it is, you know, kind of just defined by separation rather than by connection, which is how we resolve. We are beings of relation rather than separation. We don't function in separation. So the challenges of all of that, they're so complex. And, you know, and on top of that, we've just lived through, you know, a pandemic where there was even more isolation and separation. And I'm not a parent myself either, but I can't, you know, well, I could only imagine like how challenging that must be when, if you were to start from that point, that it just simply, it's fact that it takes a village to raise a child, and that village, you know, suddenly just isn't available anymore in today's culture. And we all know and have heard so many reports on how there's a lot more domestic violence and other issues, and also family homes during the pandemic. And I guess most of the time that's assumed that is because of the mental struggle that, you know, has come up through that time. But, you know, you just sort of take that as one thing, that yes, that's one issue. There is this kind of whole other layer of just sort of struggling through by not having the village anymore, and the impact that would have on bringing up your child.
Absolutely, I agree. That village is super important. Whether that village is your original roots or whether you uprooted yourself and you created that village, it's super essential, not just for the well-being of your child to grow and prosper and have those things that you mentioned, but also for the parents to be able to, as we just said, to be able to know one of the priorities for any parent is their child's safety. And so to know that my child is safe, first and foremost, looked after, if they have a good time, that's a bonus. But to be able to have people, places, and support networks, you know, parents vet all of these providers, institutions, but mainly providers, I think is the relevant word here. And they scrutinize them, because you're giving your most prized important part of you and your family and your life to a stranger, essentially, that you might not have had the opportunity to connect with long enough because of those other factors. And in the day and age that we live in, whereas in a village, you would just, in an actual village, you would go to your neighbors, just hand it over and then come back by the end of the day, hopefully. And so a lot goes into the modern day village as well. A lot of interactions, a lot of trust building between parents and communities. And then trust between the child and that provider, whether that's a school, whether it's a carer, whether it's a one-time babysitter even, let alone people who are going to be in that child's life on a longer term basis. So many things are part of that and are really important. I don't think it's an easy task to choose to be a parent. And sometimes it doesn't happen by choice. And so you're still faced with challenges to make it work as best as you can. And as you initially opened the conversation in terms of the resources available, perhaps sometimes they are available, but they're not in front of parents' eyes, or parents don't know where to look for resources, or perhaps they're not motivated enough to look for resources because it feels more time invested into something without knowing what they're going to get out of it. So that conversation can go in many, many different directions as we kind of try to look for solutions or try to find ways that we can just handle it better. I personally, in my life, I always want to solve something. And I'm sometimes guilty of giving advice when it wasn't asked. So that's something I've had to learn. Wait to be asked and then offer it. But it comes from the desire to just wanting to fix and solve a challenge or a problem. And how I try to solve these challenges when they are presented in my environment, in my community and in my village, metaphorical or actual, is through kids yoga.
So let's talk about kids yoga, and you're touching on some really important things there in terms of, you know, parents want their child to be safe and to feel safe. Also, they want to feel safe about where their child is, but they also want their child to feel safe, of course. And they, you know, they really need to trust the person, the environment, the location where they're sending their child, and obviously also what it actually is that they're going to be doing there. And this is like a big thing in terms of what we're, you know, what I'm trying to do with the classes and the therapies and all of the different offerings and events at Little Yoga Space, and to make sure that we are providing as much insight to who we all are and what's actually being offered and what happens, so people know exactly what they're signing up for. And you know, with children or no children, but I think we're all a little bit on the edge right now anyway. So I think it's really important that we give a really good insight and a lot of clarity and a taste of things, or, you know, in whichever way we can let people feel like, oh yeah, that resonates and that feels good, and I want to sign up my child for that. So kids yoga. Now, I mean, I know this, but like, I'm wondering whether some people assume that it's your normal yoga teacher, as qualified as they might be, and they just simply offer a yoga class to children. No, it's not that. So people actually go through a proper training to become a kids yoga teacher. So tell me why that is necessary, and how kids yoga, like what happens in a kids yoga class? How is that different to your normal yoga class for adults?
Well, kids yoga is magical. Let's start there. The three pillars of kids yoga that I like to emphasize and I like to work with in my classes and workshops, and when I am creating anything that involves children are curiosity, creativity, and connection. And in the past, when kids have asked me what is kids yoga, I've said that it's making shapes with our bodies that make us feel good. But it's so much more than that. For children, yoga is a mixture of active times and quiet times, which in that sense can be similar to adult classes. It's also about learning how to use our body to find its strengths and learning about its strengths, and accepting its weaknesses, and having that balance and being okay with it. It's about stories that inspire and grow our imagination. And this is when we start moving into a different kind of energy or a different field comparing to adult classes. Even though sometimes that exists in adult classes too, because yoga is a philosophy. So we share stories and we share old age wisdom through our classes as well. For me, it's really about the element of curiosity being those how questions, asking things like, how does this make me feel? Or how does changing my breath change my thoughts and my mood? It's how can I get better at, and then insert the relevant desire. Swimming, football, writing, public speaking, in the case of teenagers or kind of going into adulthood. For children could be, how can I get better at kicking a ball? How can I get better at throwing a ball? How can I get better at listening? So whatever your desired skill or just desire, relevant desire is, it's how can I get better at it? It also teaches us to concentrate and focus on one thing at a time. Can you imagine that? It's in a world where we, and I used to be very guilty of this, where multitasking is celebrated, where we are busy, 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 busy for the sake of being busy. Using the kids yoga classes, yes, we use a lot of color and we use a lot of movement, and we balance that with quiet times, and we have music and we have dancing and we have sleeping and we get messy and we laugh. It's using elements from different disciplines to ultimately capture a child's attention and give them these go-to practices or exercises that they can rely on away from the yoga mat. So when their lives get a little bit stressful, as they do, or demanding, as they do, they have these coping mechanisms available to them. And as I said, the kids part is offered with more color and sometimes more noise and sometimes a mess and laughter and sometimes even tears and everything in between. And it's knowing that these are all okay. Shall we try some shapes together?
Well, yes, I was just going to say that sounds very much like something that all adults could do a little bit more as well. But I also see in the background there, you've got a few toys with you today.
I have my friends.
Do you want to give us a little taster of what, you know, something you might do in a kids yoga class?
Of course.
Have a bit of an idea. And those of you watching this later or at any point, then feel free to get up and get on the floor somewhere. I don't think you probably need a yoga mat and join in, have a go.
That's right, you won't need a yoga mat, just a little bit of space on the floor. If you catch and have space behind you, I invite you to stand with me. So I do have some friends here. I have my Lady Teddy with Mr. Monkey. And so if you do have the space, let's stand. I'm just going to move my camera a little bit. Oh, no, I tricked you. Let's not stand. I'm sorry. No, that was not intentional. So let's come into kneading. If you can, if you have the space available, otherwise you can be seated on your comfy chair. And so we're just going to close our eyes just for a second, if it's comfortable. Take a deep breath in through the nose and sigh out with a sound. And then we're going to walk our hands as far away from us as we can. And our forehead is going to meet the mat. And now, can you hear me okay here? Can you hear me okay? Good. Now over here, we're going to take the arms close to the legs. We're a little seed, deep, deep, deep in the earth. A seed that can grow into anything we want. And so we're going to slowly start moving and growing as we receive water and sunshine. And we are going to grow into a little seedling. Opening the legs, coming into a little yogi squat. Now we're a little seedling here. And as we receive more water and sunshine, we'll keep growing and growing and growing into a tall, tall tree. I think you can just about see me. And as we keep growing, our roots get stronger, so we can bring one leg to the inside of our thigh and spread our branches, allow the wind to swish the leaves. And knowing that our roots are so, so strong, even the strongest of winds cannot move us. We are indestructible. Then we're going to change our side, see how our roots feel on this side. Maybe the roots on this side need a little bit extra care. Maybe they are not as strong, maybe they're stronger. And let's see all those winds trying to shake us. Then we're going to open our legs wide, come to a half squat, and this is where we're going to get a little bit more active. I love this little practice. So we come into our goddess pose, sumo squat, get ready for elephant pose. And as we go around and ask the children what this pose is called, you will hear many, many, many different things. Then we're going to open our arms wide, and I'll take one foot off the floor and then the other. And then here we would usually dance to some music. And maybe we just alternate, keeping those legs really strong. Oh, and then we pause in the air. And then we drop the legs. And then we lift them up again. And then maybe do some dancing toes, dancing heels. And then for an extra challenge, we're going to keep the arms moving. And then come up, straighten everything. And bring the arms to the sides. Take a deep breath in. Maybe close the eyes. And side out. And then from here, we're going to come back to the floor, back to the earth, into our seed pose, sleeping seed, resting the head down, protected by the earth.
Well, it looked so much fun, but also like quite a workout. Really cool. Like, you can really see how, I mean, these are poses that we would do in an adult yoga class, but they're just being told in a story and kind of, with all of these beautiful images. So really working with the imagination, so beautiful.
Definitely. And during the entire course of the class, we would stop for moments and interact more with our props or toys. We would utilize different games. I have some yoga cards on the other side where these are all things that can help us or guide us towards that developing the imagination. Or I don't even think kids require much development of the imagination. It's so available to them. They just require the space where it's okay to be as imaginative as you are. And that's what kids yoga offers. And I'm so out of breath. It's shining here in beautiful Lisbon. And so, yes, it also is a workout. The little routine with goddess pose always gets children almost complaining about how many times we're going from side to side. So remembering that as fun as we want yoga to be, we are using the body. And so there is an element of strength and flexibility and learning what works for us and what doesn't. And usually by tomorrow, you will know how those muscles feel.
That wasn't goddess pose, that was like a crab, no?
I did say it's a mixture of lots of things. Goddess legs and crab arms, so let's call it that.
Yeah. So I know you're offering a couple of different groups. One is for a younger age group, which I'm assuming is more playful, where all the toys and the masks and the glitter and all of that are coming out. But you're also doing a class for teens, which I guess that's also, well, yeah, quite an interesting age group. And the class is focused on teens who train. So tell me a little bit more about that.
So yes, as you said, I offer a class with a younger age group. My props today are kind of aimed at the younger age group. The class for teens who train, is aimed at teenagers who perhaps need extra support as their own schedules are so demanding in terms of other activities, whether those are sports, whether they are other kind of movement and creative practices from drama to dancing, whether they are extracurricular academic activities, whatever it is that they have chosen to get extra training in, physical, academic. My teen yoga for teens who train classes are there to support them during that. I think we can talk about teenagers for a whole other webinar, because I love the younger age groups. Oh, I love the younger age groups. They are so cute and they're so playful and they're so interactive. And I really enjoy teaching teenagers. And when I began teaching teenagers, it just transpired how truly demanding their lives are, and equally, that kind of bridge between childhood and adulthood. They're 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and so they require a whole other set of support and time. And I think they are a wonderful age group to engage with, because they are so clued on as to world issues and societal issues and the kind of world they want to grow in, and so, or not. And again, going back to that element of separation as well, I think that's a big topic for them as well. So essentially, my teen yoga classes are there to help them with whatever program they've chosen to, or discipline they've chosen to train in, but also we look at how we can strengthen the body so that it supports that chosen practice of theirs. We look at breathing techniques. We look at the mind space and kind of how visualizing and having guided meditations can help us with the daily challenges of schedules and demands and responsibilities, studying. And we also look at how we can keep connecting and supporting one another.
Well, this is something that keeps really coming through for me here, and how much, no matter what age group, this is really there to support that child or young adult in whatever is going on for them. And so let's bring it back to the parent. How does the children doing kids yoga support the parent? Because they are not allowed in, are they?
No. I also offer family workshops, and we can talk about that at the end, where we do interact with the entire range of age groups. But in terms of answering your question, how does kids yoga support the parent, is through connection. Going back to that final pillar of the three that I mentioned earlier. We stay curious, we explore, we create, we share in our creativity, and then ultimately it is to connect. Yoga means union, or in other words, to connect something, two things or more, dots, ideas, people. And so we first learn to connect breath to movement, mind to body, our inner self, with the roles we play in our lives, whether we're a child, a teenager, or an adult, a parent. And then we learn to connect to each other, going back to that very beginning about the village. Connection is at the root of that. Kids yoga gives children the space to be as they are. They can feel seen and heard. They can grow in compassion to one another as well as their surroundings. And by default, that supports the parents. It equips their children with ways to recognize those big emotions, to give them those coping strategies, so that the child already has something to reach out to when they feel challenged by external challenges, internal challenges, and so that it makes the role of the parent just a little bit more supported and a little bit easier. It makes the parent feel better seen and heard by their own children. As children develop their compassion, they can also offer compassion to their parents, and perhaps not in a completely aware type of sense, but it happens as we grow our practice. And it is a practice, so it does not happen on the first day. It supports parents by ultimately giving permission to both parents and children that it's okay to be flawed. And I think that's quite important, that it's okay to figure out challenges together. We don't have to be against each other. Yes, we need those structures around our routines as we grow and figure out the world. Yes, we need those rules that help us remain within those boundaries, but also learning how to be free within those boundaries that keep us safe. And all of that comes with a lot of trial and error, and it's okay to try and make mistakes and try again. And I think that's what kids yoga lets us discover, that we are flawed, and that's okay, and we can make it better, and that's also okay, and we can do it together. We are a little village in our classes or in our kind of smaller community, and we are here to support each other in order to be able to lead those lives of balance and better being.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, like, really, that's just bringing out the deep essence of the yoga philosophy and teaching, right, to all age groups, because obviously They kind of
Yeah,
life.
that makes
life things.
no separation between, as you said, it's the same yoga for children or yoga for adults. The way it's presented to children is different, but what it gives you and what it takes away is exactly the same.
Now, do you have another little exercise for us?
Yes. Now, this one, I won't trick you. We are definitely going to remain seated. I'm going to use my friend Teddy, Mini Teddy. So, Monkey's got his arms around him already. So, this is where we would come into a practice with someone else, another child or parent. And maybe if one is not available, just a teddy bear, but it is nice to have a friend there. So imagine, as I don't have anyone else, this is my friend. I'm just going to place him on the mat. And then as he sits across from me, I'm going to place one hand on his chest and the other hand on my chest. So my teddy, imagine my teddy is a little bit taller and my hand reaches his chest. So my hand is at his heart and my other hand is at my heart. And then we can look at each other and maybe smile, maybe pull a silly face, and maybe close the eyes. And even though our eyes are closed, we're going to concentrate on that hand and the heart underneath the hand. And then we are going to take a deep inhale. And exhale. And then we'll try to imagine as if we are breathing through the heart for 5 breaths, 4 breaths, with the inhale and the exhale. And then as we breathe in again, we feel the chest rising, our own chest and the chest of our friend. And then as we exhale, the chest goes down and then it goes up again. And then it goes down. And we're just concentrating on the heart, breathing through the heart. Even though we can't see it, our eyes are closed, we can feel each other's hearts and we're connected through them. As I breathe, you breathe. As you breathe, I breathe. And we connect. And then after we've done those 5 breaths, what we'll do is actually turn around, so swing around as delicately as you like. And then I have my friend or Teddy behind me. So again, imagine Teddy is as tall as I am and his back is to my back. This time our hands are not touching. One hand can go on our chest, perhaps a different hand, and the other hand can go on our tummy. But our backs are touching. Our hearts are still connected through the back. And then if we close our eyes, we go back to those 5 full breaths. The back's touching, connecting the hearts, connecting to ourselves and each other. And as we breathe in, we feel our friend's chest rising, back maybe even straightening a little bit more. And then as we exhale, we feel them relaxing a little bit. And we continue for 3 more. Focusing on that heart in the middle of the chest and now in the middle of the back, touching, connected. And then when we've completed that last breath, we can turn around and look at our friend, and we can thank them for connecting to our heart, or give them a little hug, a little squeeze, pull another silly face. And then continue.
Thank you. How lovely. So I'm assuming some of that might also be a really nice thing to do with between parent and child, and maybe something that would happen in a family yoga event. And talking of which, there will be one of those coming up this Saturday, but hopefully many more. So when we get everybody old and young together in a room, what happens then?
Best. An organized mess. I should not scare people away. An organized mess. I chose this exercise. It's a heart-centered breath practice because it's something really, really lovely to do between a parent and a child. The child gets to explore the front and the back body and see how that feels. And those partner practices are very common in family yoga events and workshops, as the one we have on Saturday in Little Yoga Space. And what we'll essentially start with is a practice that kind of stimulates a little bit of heat. It gets us to move and maybe dance a little bit, and then we'll come together to have more of those partner practices, whether they are to help us develop that strength in body. They'll also be to help us develop that awareness of mind. Yes, it does get messy because we'll have scarves and music and bells and toys, and then slowly as the workshop comes to a close, we'll kind of settle in, and we'll go into a little guided story time or a yoga nidra, where we continue to stay connected but also go on guided visualization or a little trip in our minds to places distant and close by. And then we come out again, share in terms of how we felt, and share with each other as much or as little as we like. And hopefully we go home with new friends.
That sounds amazing. So I'm going to give that a plug because it's always easier if somebody else does it. So join Martina on Saturday. It's this Saturday. If you're watching the replay of this in time, obviously, that will be Saturday, the 11th of June from 11 till 1 o'clock. It's €20 per adult plus child. You'll find the details on the workshops and events page on littleyogaspacelisboa.com. And if you're watching this at any point later in the future, then come back to that workshops and events page anyway, because hopefully this will be a regular installment. And if you're looking for a kids yoga class for your child, we have 2 groups, and that's happening on Fridays, late afternoon, early evening. So I think it's 17:45 is for the younger group, and at 18:45 for the teens. It's a 45-minute class, and happening also at Little Yoga Space. The details are on the website under the practice tab. There's a whole page about kids yoga, so you can read up a lot more about what actually really happens there, and you can read up a little bit more about Martina herself. And obviously feel free to just reach out to us or to Martina anytime. Her details are also on the website if you've got any questions or concerns, because just what we spoke about at the beginning is really important, that you feel really good about sending your child to the studio, to this activity, and to let Martina look after them. So yeah, really very much invite you to reach out, get in touch, have a chat, see if you resonate. And, you know, sometimes we don't resonate, and that is also good. And there will be somebody better for you, your family. So that's all good. For now, this is it. We've almost come up to a full hour, and I'm aware of time. Martina, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for chatting. Thank you for doing this work that is just so important, and is becoming more and more important in these times that are, yeah, quite challenging, I think, for quite a lot of people. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and everybody else, thank you so much for watching and tuning in. We have a few other kind of talks and webinars coming up, introducing different teachers and different activities here. So next week, I'll be joined by Johanna. Quite a lot of you know her, and she's going to talk about these massage balls that you can use to roll out all of your tissues and muscles and your fascia, and how that can really help with all sorts of issues and aches and pains in the body. And if you have a tennis ball at home, you'll be very much invited to join in some of the exercises that she'll be offering up as well in that webinar. So join us next Thursday. But this is it for me for now.
In the audience, I'm looking forward to bringing out my tennis ball.
No, me too. So yeah, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Stay cool if you can. For anyone watching, being based in Portugal or Lisbon, or in this kind of hot country right now, look after yourselves, and hopefully we'll see you soon in person in real life at the studio. Thank you.